Something just happened on the other side of the world that most XRP holders in America have not fully connected to the Clarity Act story yet. China just signed 26 financial institutions onto its digital yuan cross-border payment network. The system is called CBEST, Cross-Border ECNY Transfer Service, and it is specifically designed to expand the global adoption of China's digital currency without relying on the US dollar or the existing SWIFT infrastructure. Now, on the surface, this might sound like a China story, a CBDC story, something happening far away that has nothing to do with your XRP bag sitting on an exchange right now. But when you look at which institution is among those 26 signed on to this network, and when you look at that institution's documented, decade-long relationship with Ripple, the picture changes. And when you understand what China expanding its digital currency globally means for the political pressure around the Clarity Act in Washington, it changes even more. Today I'm going to connect these dots completely. What China actually announced, why Standard Chartered sitting at the intersection of both stories matters, what Ripple's existing China connections tell us about where this could go, and why this announcement may be the single most effective piece of external pressure for forcing the US to pass the Clarity Act before any other argument has managed to do it. Welcome to XRP Verified. Subscribe and turn on the bell for your daily update. Let's get into it. Let me start with exactly what China announced, because the details matter and I want to make sure you understand what this actually is before we get into the implications. China's Digital Yuan Operations Center just signed agreements with 26 financial institutions to expand cross-border payments and push global adoption of the digital yuan. The system is called CBEST, Cross-Border ECNY Transfer Service. It was built and operated under the guidance of the Digital Currency Institute of the People's Bank of China. This built on a direction China announced back in October of last year, when they stated they were rewiring their entire financial system to allow global trade without relying on the US dollar. That was the stated goal. This week's announcement is the execution of that goal, moving from a domestic digital yuan to an internationally deployed cross-border payment network backed by 26 major financial institutions operating across Southeast Asia, the Middle East, and beyond. The 26 institutions include Standard Chartered China, as well as multiple Chinese-funded bank branches in Thailand, Singapore, Laos, and Qatar. Now here is why those specific locations matter for the XRP story. Ripple is a major licensed payment operator in Singapore. Ripple has significant institutional relationships in Qatar. Ripple has partnerships across Thailand. These are not random markets. They are precisely the corridors where China's new digital yuan cross-border network is expanding. And they are corridors where Ripple has been building payment infrastructure for years. Now let me talk about Standard Chartered specifically, because this is the institution that sits at the center of both the China story and the Ripple story simultaneously. Standard Chartered is not a typical bank in the crypto and blockchain space. They are one of the most vocal, most active, most publicly pro-crypto major banks in the world. Their history with Ripple specifically goes back years. In 2017, Ripple announced instant payment services going live with Access Bank, Rack Bank, and Standard Chartered. Standard Chartered was an early Ripple partner before almost any other major global bank was willing to be associated publicly with crypto infrastructure. Standard Chartered also invested directly in Ripple during that same period, putting their own capital behind the technology they were using. Their connection to Ripple custody, through the chain of Medico acquisition to Ripple custody, runs through both HSBC and Standard Chartered as institutional partners. The Zodiac custody arm of Standard Chartered connects back to this same infrastructure. Most recently, in May 2026, Ripple secured a $200 million revolving credit facility with investment management firm Neuberger Berman. Standard Chartered served as the anchor banking partner of that deal. That was confirmed on May 11th of this year, less than 6 weeks ago. Standard Chartered also received their stablecoin license in Hong Kong. They are one of the few major global banks that has moved from talk to actual licensed digital asset operations in a major financial jurisdiction. Now, Standard Chartered is among the 26 institutions signed on to China's CBEST digital Yuan cross-border network. The bank that has been Ripple's most consistent and most public institutional banking partner is now also a named participant in China's global digital currency expansion. Does this confirm that Ripple, or XRP, will be part of China's CBEST network? Not directly. The announcement does not specifically name Ripple or XRP. I want to be clear about that, because this channel does not overstate connections or manufacture certainty where none exists. But what it does confirm is this: Standard Chartered, which has deep documented operational ties to Ripple and XRP infrastructure, is now operating in the same cross-border payment corridors that China is specifically targeting for digital yuan expansion. And those corridors are the same ones where Ripple has payment licenses and institutional partnerships. Now let me talk about Ripple's broader documented connections to China, because there is more here than most Western XRP coverage acknowledges. In August of last year, Linklogis, one of China's largest fintech companies managing a $1 trillion supply chain finance platform, announced they were moving their platform to the XRP ledger. A $1 trillion supply chain finance operation choosing XRP as its blockchain infrastructure. That is not a small announcement. The Hashkey Group, which has achieved widespread adoption of its blockchain-powered supply chain finance solutions in mainland China, partnered with SBI Group to launch XRP ledger-powered solutions, starting with supply chain finance. Hashkey is a major institutional name in both Hong Kong and mainland China. Ripple is also a member of the BISC PMI Group, the Bank for International Settlements Committee on Payments and Market Infrastructures. The Bank of China is also a member of this group. That shared membership at the BIS infrastructure level is not nothing. It means Ripple and China's central banking representatives are operating in the same institutional standard-setting bodies. And going back to 2017, Ripple welcomed China's central bank industry and academic leaders to Ripple headquarters to discuss blockchain trends. China's central banking officials were meeting with Ripple years before most U.S. banks were willing to be seen in the same room as crypto. None of this is a guarantee that XRP becomes the bridge asset for China's digital yuan expansion, but it demonstrates something important. Ripple has spent years building institutional relationships in precisely the markets China is now targeting with its global digital currency push. The groundwork exists. The question is whether and how those existing relationships develop in the context of this new announcement. Now let me explain why this China announcement changes the Clarity Act conversation in Washington, because this is where the XRP implication becomes most direct. There is one argument that has consistently moved politicians in Washington more than any other when it comes to crypto regulation. Not the benefits to consumers, not the efficiency improvements for banks, not even the tax revenue potential. The argument that moves Washington is the competition argument. We cannot let China lead. We cannot lose the tech race. We cannot allow innovation to happen offshore while the US falls behind. Every time this argument has been deployed, whether around AI, semiconductors, or now digital assets, it creates urgency that consumer benefit arguments alone never produce. China just handed every Clarity Act supporter in Congress the most powerful version of that argument they have ever had. China is not talking about a digital yuan anymore. China is not running a domestic CBDC pilot anymore. China just signed 26 major financial institutions onto a global cross-border payment network specifically designed to move money internationally without the US dollar. That is a direct challenge to US financial infrastructure dominance, and the only credible US response, the only way the United States can compete in the global digital payment race rather than cede that ground to China, is through clear, enabling legislation that allows US companies and institutions to build and operate digital asset infrastructure legally at scale. The Clarity Act is that legislation. And this China announcement just made the argument for passing it faster more urgent than anything that has happened domestically. The current timeline has passage by July 4th looking unlikely. Today is June 18th, and the legislative calendar is compressed. The more realistic target is mid-July, after Congress returns from the July 4th recess. But the China announcement this week is exactly the kind of external shock that can accelerate legislative timelines that were otherwise drifting. If U.S. senators and representatives are watching China deploy a global digital currency network with 26 major financial institutions, the question in Washington stops being, should we pass the Clarity Act, and becomes, how fast can we get this done before China moves further? Now, let me give you the honest picture, because this channel does not manufacture certainty where none exists. The connection between China's CBEST announcement and Ripple, or XRP directly, is circumstantial at this stage. Standard Chartered's presence in both ecosystems is documented and real. But that does not automatically mean XRP becomes part of China's digital yuan cross-border rails. The CBEST announcement mentions Standard Chartered. It does not mention Ripple or XRP specifically. The political pressure argument that China's move accelerates Clarity Act passage is a reasonable thesis. But Congress has faced external pressure arguments before and still moved slowly. The legislative calendar is what it is. 3 weeks to July 4th is almost certainly not enough time given the remaining open issues. Short-term price picture for XRP, currently trading around $1.18 to $1.22 following the FOMC pause decision this week. Kevin Warsh held a largely neutral tone, neither hawkishly extended rates nor signaled imminent cuts. The market digested this as expected, and XRP held support levels. Key resistance remains $1.27, and above that, $1.34. Critical support is $1.05 to $1.08. The geopolitical situation with Iran. The Memorandum of Understanding is still not a fully signed deal. Final signing was targeted for this week in Switzerland. If it holds, the sustained removal of that oil price risk premium continues to benefit inflation conditions and Fed flexibility. If it falls apart, risk assets including crypto see renewed selling pressure. Your full summary for today. China signed 26 financial institutions onto its CBEST digital yuan cross-border payment network, specifically designed to expand global adoption of the digital yuan without relying on the US dollar or SWIFT. Standard Chartered is among those 26 institutions, the same bank that has been Ripple's most consistent and most documented institutional banking partner for nearly a decade, including serving as anchor bank on Ripple's $200 million credit facility in May 2026. Ripple's documented connections to China include Link Logis moving its trillion-dollar supply chain finance platform to the XRP ledger, HashKey Group's China-focused XRP ledger deployments, and shared BISC-PMI Group membership with the Bank of China. This announcement does not directly confirm XRP's role in China's CBEST network, but it does confirm that the corridors China is targeting for digital yuan expansion, Singapore, Thailand, Qatar, Southeast Asia, are precisely the corridors where Ripple has existing payment licenses and institutional partnerships. Most importantly, China's global digital currency move hands Clarity Act supporters in Washington the single most powerful argument for urgent passage. The tech race argument has always been the most effective political motivator in DC, and China just made it concrete. Stay informed, stay patient, and as always, stay verified.